Get your trespassing black ass off the ground before we tase you again. Officer Hawthorne's boot pressed harder between Maya Hollister's shoulder blades, grinding her bare skin against the hot concrete beside her own swimming pool. Officer Mills yanked her other arm upward, twisting until her elbow popped, laughing as her FBI badge, still inside her property bag, lay inches away, ignored. "You people think you can just wander into rich neighborhoods and pretend you live here," Hawthorne spat. Maya's breath stayed steady. None of them, not the officers, not the neighbors, had the faintest idea what would happen the moment she finally stood up. Before continuing, comment where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe because tomorrow's story is one you can't miss. Maya Hollister stretched out on her poolside lounger, letting the warm morning sun caress her skin. The gentle splash of water against the pool's edge created a soothing rhythm that almost made her forget about the mountain of unpacked boxes cluttering her patio. After 20 years in law enforcement, she'd learned to savor these rare moments of peace. The past 6 months had been brutal, coordinating with multiple agencies to bring down a trafficking ring that had tentacles in 3 states. But that case was closed now, the perpetrators facing federal charges. She deserved this quiet Saturday morning in her new home. A whisper carried across the street, followed by poorly concealed pointing and staring. Maya kept her eyes closed behind her sunglasses, but her investigator's instincts tracked every movement. The Wilsons, she'd seen their name on the mailbox, had been watching her since the moving truck arrived 3 days ago. Their disapproving glances and hushed conversations weren't exactly subtle. "Mom, should I zoom in more?" A teenage voice carried over her fence. Maya's jaw tightened. She could picture the phone camera pointed at her, recording yet another black person doing nothing more threatening than existing in an upscale neighborhood. The urge to confront them bubbled up in her chest, but she pushed it down. She'd dealt with worse in her career. Much worse. Instead, she adjusted her designer sunglasses, a small reward she'd bought herself after closing the trafficking case, and took a slow sip of her iced tea. The condensation from the glass felt cool against her fingers as she tried to focus on the warmth of the sun and the gentle breeze rustling through her new garden's palm trees. "Did you get enough footage?" Mrs. Wilson's voice carried clearly now, not even attempting to be discreet. "Make sure you get the whole yard. The police will need to see everything." Maya's hand froze mid-sip. The word police triggered her professional radar. She'd heard that tone countless times before. People weaponizing law enforcement against black bodies, turning daily activities into potential death sentences. She set her glass down carefully on the small table beside her lounger, right next to the closing documents for the house she'd bought after saving for 15 years. The papers were still there from when she'd been reviewing them earlier, making sure everything was in order, a habit from decades of preparing court documents. The sound of shuffling feet and whispered accusations continued from across the street. Maya could feel the weight of their stares, heavy with assumptions and prejudice. Her peaceful morning felt increasingly like the calm before a storm, but she refused to let them drive her inside her own home. She adjusted her position on the lounger, making sure her FBI badge was visible on the table next to her house documents. Not that she should need credentials to exist in her own backyard, but experience had taught her to keep identification close at hand. The gold badge caught the sunlight, throwing off a brief flash. "Did you see that?" Mr. Wilson's voice now. "She's got something over there. Could be a weapon." Maya almost laughed at the absurdity. Her badge, a symbol of law enforcement, being mistaken for a threat. The irony wasn't lost on her, but the humor died quickly as she heard Mrs. Wilson's response. "I already called them," she said in a stage whisper. "Told them someone broke into the Edwards' old house. They're sending units right away." Maya's muscles tensed, but she forced herself to remain still. As a federal agent, she'd learned to read situations quickly. Making any sudden movements now could escalate things dangerously. She kept her breathing steady, her body language relaxed, even as her mind raced through protocols and procedures. The morning sounds shifted subtly. Birds scattered from nearby trees. The neighborhood's usual weekend noise, lawnmowers, children playing, distant traffic, seemed to fade away, replaced by an ominous quiet that Maya recognized all too well. Her years of experience screamed warnings at her. The first crunch of boots on gravel reached her ears, heavy, purposeful steps approaching from multiple directions. Radio static crackled, followed by harsh whispers of tactical coordination. Maya's heart rate picked up, but her face remained neutral, composed. She could handle this. She had to handle this. The metallic scrape of her gate latch being tested came next. Then, without warning, the sound of wood splintering as the gate burst open under force. Heavy boots thundered into her backyard, shattering her Saturday morning peace with military precision. Maya didn't have time to process the invasion before chaos erupted around her. 4 officers charged through her broken gate, their boots thundering against the concrete pool deck. Their hands hovered near their holstered weapons as they spread out in a tactical formation she recognized all too well from her own training. "Don't move!" Officer Hawthorne barked, his face twisted with an authority he clearly relished. Before Maya could even raise her hands, he lunged forward and seized her wrist in a grip that sent pain shooting up her arm. "I live," Maya began, but her words cut off in a gasp as Hawthorne yanked her from the lounger and slammed her face down onto the concrete. The rough surface scraped against her cheek, and her sunglasses clattered away. Officer Mills dropped his knee hard into her back, driving the air from her lungs. The weight crushed against her spine as another officer wrenched her free arm behind her. The pool water's peaceful splashing now seemed to mock the violence unfolding beside it. "Well, well," Hawthorne sneered, pressing her wrist higher up her back until she couldn't hold back a grunt of pain. "Looks like we caught ourselves a trespasser who thinks she can just walk into any neighborhood she wants." "This is my house," Maya managed through gritted teeth, fighting to keep her voice steady despite the knee grinding between her shoulder blades. "I just moved in 3 days ago. My identification—" "Sure you did," Mills cut her off with a laugh that held no humor. "And I'm the Queen of England." His knee dug deeper, making Maya wince. "Check my bag," she directed, trying to maintain her professional composure even as they treated her like a criminal. "My ID and property papers are right." "Oh, you hear that, boys?" Hawthorne's voice dripped with mock surprise. "The trespasser says she's got papers. Let's just take her word for it and go home." The other officers chuckled, and Maya felt her anger rising beneath her forced calm. They dragged her across the concrete, her knees scraping and catching on every rough patch. The skin burned as it tore, but Maya refused to give them the satisfaction of hearing her pain. Her training kicked in. Stay calm. Document everything. Survive the moment. Proper ID for this neighborhood would be a different skin color, one of the officers muttered, just loud enough for Maya to hear. Her jaw clenched at the blatant racism, memorizing his voice for later. Officer Mills snatched her pool bag from beside the lounger, dumping its contents onto the ground. Her towel, sunscreen, and phone scattered across the concrete. He kicked through the items with his boot, sending her phone skidding dangerously close to the pool's edge. "Looking for those papers you mentioned?" Mills taunted, grinding his heel into her beach towel. "Funny, I don't see any deed to this house. Just looks like standard burglar equipment to me." Maya watched as they carelessly handled her belongings, her professional eye noting every violation of procedure, every actionable offense. The neighbors across the street were still filming. Good. Let them record their own complicity in this assault. "My FBI credentials are in there," Maya stated firmly, even as Hawthorne increased pressure on her twisted arms. along with the closing documents for this house. If you would just— FBI? Hawthorne's laugh was sharp and dismissive. That's a new one. Usually they just claim to be visiting a friend or doing maintenance work. He leaned down close to her ear, his breath hot against her skin. But FBI? That's pretty ambitious, even for a trespasser. Maya's years of experience helped her maintain composure, but fury burned in her chest as they continued to mock and manhandle her. She'd investigated countless civil rights violations, but experiencing it firsthand brought a new dimension to her understanding. Every second, every casual slur, every unnecessary use of force, it all went into her mental case file. Officer Mills continued pawing through her scattered belongings, tossing aside her house keys and wallet with theatrical flair. Maybe she's got her FBI badge hidden in here somewhere, he joked, picking up her badge wallet with exaggerated care. Probably just another fake. The wallet fell open, and the gold badge caught the morning sun. The federal identification card beside it left no room for doubt. Maya felt the sudden tension ripple through the officers as Mills stared at the credentials, his face draining of color. The stunned silence lasted only seconds before erupting into panicked movement. Officer Mills stumbled backward, the FBI credentials dangling from his trembling fingers as if they might burn him. The knee pressing into Maya's back suddenly lifted, but no one moved to help her up from the concrete. "Oh, shit," one of the officers whispered, the words carrying clearly in the tense morning air. Maya remained face down on the rough surface, her cheeks stinging, arms still twisted behind her. She could feel warm blood starting to trickle from her scraped knees, soaking into the torn fabric of her pants. The weight of their mistake seemed to paralyze the officers, leaving them frozen in a tableau of their own making. The crackle of a radio broke the silence, followed by the heavy footfalls of someone new approaching. "What's the situation here?" a commanding voice called out. Maya recognized the calculated authority in the tone. Someone used to controlling difficult situations. "Sergeant Lane," Officer Hawthorne stammered, his grip on Maya's wrists finally loosening slightly. "There's been a serious mistake," Maya finished for him, her voice steady despite her position. She could hear Lane's footsteps stop abruptly as he assessed the scene. The scattered belongings, the FBI badge glinting in the sun, and his officers standing like guilty schoolchildren around a prone federal agent. "Get those cuffs off her." "Now!" Lane barked, but his voice carried an edge of barely controlled panic rather than genuine concern for Maya's welfare. Hawthorne fumbled with the handcuffs, his earlier confidence evaporating. As the metal released, he gave Maya a needlessly rough shove forward. "There, you're free to go," he muttered, as if he were doing her a favor. Maya pushed herself up slowly, every movement deliberate and controlled, despite the tremors of anger and adrenaline coursing through her body. Her professional mask stayed firmly in place as she catalogued each face, each name tag, each badge number. The neighbors were still filming from across the street. She made note of that, too. "Agent Hollister," Sergeant Lane stepped forward, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Let's handle this professionally." These officers were responding to a concerned citizen's call about suspicious activity. "Suspicious activity," Maya repeated, brushing concrete dust from her torn clothes. "In my own backyard." She turned slowly, making eye contact with each officer. Mills looked away first, then Hawthorne, their earlier bravado crumbling under her steady gaze. Lane moved closer, lowering his voice to a tone meant for only the officers to hear. "Clean up those body cam feeds before shift end. Standard procedure." But Maya caught every word, adding it to her mental evidence file. "My property cameras caught everything," she stated flatly, watching Lane's false smile freeze in place. "Including the audio." She gestured to the discreet security cameras mounted under her eaves, standard FBI home protection protocol that these officers had failed to notice in their eagerness to assault her. The officers shifted uncomfortably, and Lane's attempt at damage control became more desperate. "Agent Hollister, I'm sure we can discuss this reasonably." The call came from a concerned neighbor who didn't recognize you. "A neighbor who watched me move in 3 days ago," Maya corrected him, her voice cold. She bent carefully, ignoring the pain in her scraped knees, to retrieve her scattered belongings. No one moved to help her. "A neighbor who filmed me relaxing in my own yard before calling in a false report." "We have to take all calls seriously," Mills tried to justify, but his voice wavered when Maya's eyes locked onto his. "Like you took my statement about living here seriously?" she asked quietly. The question hung in the air, unanswerable. Sergeant Lane cleared his throat. "We'll need you to come down to the station to file a report." "I'll be filing several reports," Maya cut him off, gathering the last of her belongings. "But not with your department." She could see the implications of her words sink in as the officers exchanged worried glances. Her legs shook slightly as she stood, but she forced them steady through sheer will. The walk to her back door felt endless, every step accompanied by the weight of hostile stares boring into her back. She could hear Lane already starting to construct their narrative, speaking quietly but urgently to his officers about proper procedure and misunderstandings. Maya's hand trembled as she inserted her key into the lock, but she kept her movements deliberate and controlled. She wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing her rattled. The door opened with a soft click, and she stepped inside her home. The home she'd worked decades to afford, in the neighborhood she'd earned the right to live in. As she closed the door behind her, the heavy thunk of the lock sliding into place echoed with finality. Through the window, she could see Lane gathering his officers, their faces grave as the reality of what they'd done began to settle in. Maya's hands shook as she lowered herself into her desk chair, the damp towel still clinging to her skin. Her laptop hummed to life, the screen's glow illuminating the tremors that hadn't quite left her fingers. She pulled up her contact list and clicked Danielle's name, needing to hear a friendly voice. The video call connected on the second ring. Danielle's concerned face filled the screen, her sharp eyes taking in Maya's disheveled appearance immediately. "Maya, what happened to you?" Danielle leaned closer to her camera, her brow furrowing at the sight of the scrapes and forming bruises. "I was just attacked in my own backyard," Maya said, her voice surprisingly steady, despite the anger simmering beneath the surface. She recounted everything, the neighbors watching, the teenage boy filming, the officers storming in without warning or announcement. As she described being slammed to the concrete, Danielle's expression darkened. "Those bastards," Danielle muttered, her jaw clenching. "Tell me you got it on camera." "Every second," Maya confirmed, already pulling up the security footage. "Pool cameras, house cameras, everything. Clear audio, too, including Sergeant Lane telling them to clean their body cams." "Send it now," Danielle demanded, her fingers flying across her own keyboard. "I'm opening a secure upload link. And Maya." She paused, her expression growing more troubled. "There's something you need to know about that neighborhood. About those specific neighbors." Maya's hands stilled over the keyboard. "What do you mean? Remember when I mentioned I was working on an administrative review for that precinct?" Danielle pulled up some files on her screen. "Those same neighbors, the Whitakers, they've done this before. Multiple times." "What?" Maya felt her chest tighten. 3 times in the past year alone, they've called in false reports about black families looking at that house before you bought it. Danielle's voice carried barely contained fury. Every single time, they claimed someone was breaking in when it was clearly scheduled viewings with real estate agents. The department responded with full force each time, and guess who always showed up first? Let me guess. Officers Hawthorne and Mills? Maya's voice was ice cold. Bingo. Danielle nodded grimly. And here's the kicker. The response times for these calls were significantly faster than average. We're talking 3 to 4 minutes from call to arrival, in a neighborhood that typically sees 15 to 20-minute response times. Maya's fingers dug into her desk edge. They knew exactly what they were doing. This wasn't confusion or overreaction, Danielle confirmed. This was targeted harassment, and they thought they'd get away with it again. They didn't expect to assault a federal agent. Maya started uploading the footage, her screen filling with progress bars. The teenage son filmed everything. He was positioned before the police arrived, like they knew exactly how this would play out. Because they did. Danielle's voice hardened. We've found social media posts from the Whitaker kid bragging about keeping the neighborhood safe by reporting suspicious people. The posts always disappeared quickly, but we archived everything. The footage finished uploading, and Maya watched Danielle's expression darken further as she reviewed it. Oh my God, Maya, this is clear as day. The excessive force, the racist comments, Lane's attempt at a cover-up. They didn't even try to hide it, Maya said quietly, touching the scrape on her cheek. They were so certain they could get away with it that they didn't bother being subtle. Because they always have before, Danielle replied, her typing growing more intense. But not this time. This is exactly what we needed, clear evidence of their pattern and practices. The administrative review just became a criminal investigation. Maya pulled up her case management software, her cursor hovering over the New File button. Send me everything you have on the previous incidents. Every report, every witness statement, every archived social media post. Already compiling it, Danielle assured her. Maya, are you sure you want to take this on? You were just assaulted. No one would blame you for stepping back and letting someone else handle it. Maya created a new case file, her fingers steady now as she typed. They didn't just attack me, Danielle. They've been systematically targeting black families trying to move into this neighborhood. How many people did they successfully drive away? How many families gave up on their dreams of living here because of their harassment? The ones we know about are probably just the tip of the iceberg, Danielle agreed solemnly. Maya clicked the tab field of the new case file. Without hesitation, she typed her own name. Hollister, Maya, civil rights, violation, assault of a federal agent. Maya's office glowed with the orange light of sunset streaming through her windows as she connected her laptop to her large monitor. The security footage expanded across the screen, crystal clear and damning. She pressed play, forcing herself to watch the attack again, with analytical detachment. The timestamps told their own story. 9:47 a.m. The Whitaker's son positions himself at the fence with his phone. 9:49 a.m. First police radio chatter becomes audible. 9:51 a.m. Officers breach her gate. 4 minutes from call to assault. Impossibly fast for this neighborhood. She zoomed in on Officer Mills's approach, his body language aggressive before he even saw her. There was no uncertainty in his movements, no attempt to assess the situation. He and Hawthorne moved like they'd done this before, practiced in their brutality. Look for the patterns, Maya muttered to herself, remembering her training. She started a detailed timeline document, noting every significant moment. The fear she'd felt earlier transformed into something harder, clearer. This wasn't just about her anymore. The precision of their attack, the practiced coordination. This was systematic. Her fingers flew across the keyboard as she began drafting her official misconduct report. Maya pulled up the sealed cases Danielle had sent over. 3 separate incidents. Same officers. Same neighbor complaints. She cross-referenced the timestamps, all showing the same impossible response times, all involving black families, all ending in aggressive confrontations. Her phone buzzed with an email from Danielle. Got you interview slots with 2 previous victims tomorrow, 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. They're ready to talk. Maya replied immediately. I'll be there. Send me their statements to review tonight. She created a wall of evidence on her second monitor. Photos of bruises from previous victims, archived social media posts from the Whitaker kid, time-stamped police reports showing the pattern. The sun sank lower as she worked, casting long shadows across her desk. Her hands paused over the keyboard. Something was nagging at her about the officer's approach. She rewound the footage again, studying their entrance. The way they moved, the practiced formation. This wasn't standard procedure for a trespassing call. This was an assault team entry. She noted it in her report. Officers approached with premeditation and unnecessary tactical formation inconsistent with reported nature of call. The room had grown dark around her, lit only by her screens. Maya's muscles ached from sitting tensely for hours, reminding her of the bruises from the concrete. She stood, stretching carefully, and walked to her back door. The pool lights created rippling patterns across the water, illuminating the spot where she'd been attacked. Maya stepped outside, the evening air cool against her skin. She walked to the exact place where Mills had driven his knee into her back, where Hawthorne had twisted her arm until she gasped in pain. Standing there, Maya felt no fear, only resolve crystallizing into steel. She thought of the other families who'd faced similar treatment, who'd been driven away before they could even move in. How many others had there been? How many had stayed silent, believing they were alone? Never again, she whispered to the night air. Every officer involved, every false report, every covered-up incident, she would expose it all. The Whitakers thought they could control who lived in their neighborhood through intimidation and lies. The officers thought their badges made them untouchable. They were wrong. Maya looked across the street at the Whitakers' dark house. Their security light clicked on, sensing her movement, casting harsh shadows across their perfectly maintained lawn. She imagined them watching her through their windows, probably planning their next move. Let them watch. Let them worry. She wasn't going anywhere. The water lapped gently against the pool's edges, a peaceful sound at odds with the day's violence. Maya touched the rough concrete where her cheek had been pressed down, feeling its texture. Every scrape, every bruise, every moment of humiliation. It would all become evidence. With deliberate calmness, she walked to the pool controls and switched off the lights. The yard plunged into darkness, broken only by the soft glow from her office. Tomorrow would bring interviews, investigations, and the beginning of her fight for justice. But for now, she needed rest. Maya stepped inside and locked the door behind her, leaving the pool area in darkness. The concrete that had witnessed her assault would soon testify to a much bigger story, one that would shake this department to its core. The Federal Field Office conference room bathed in golden morning light as Maya arranged files across the long table. She'd arrived early to prepare, setting up her laptop and connecting it to the wall-mounted screen. The whiteboard behind her already held a detailed timeline of incidents, with spaces ready to add new data points. Danielle walked in carrying 2 coffee cups, setting one beside Maya. Got your favorite. You'll need it. Today's going to be intense. She pulled out a chair and started organizing consent forms. First interviews Mrs. Patterson, 72 years old, lived in Oak Ridge Heights for 30 years before the harassment started. Maya nodded, checking her recording equipment. Same neighborhood as the new luxury condos they're building? Exactly. Right where her house stands. Danielle's voice carried a hint of disgust. She's had 15 wellness checks in 3 months. Officers showing up at midnight, claiming concerned neighbors called. A gentle knock interrupted them. Mrs. Patterson stood in the doorway, her silver hair neatly styled, wearing a pressed floral dress that couldn't hide how thin she'd become. Maya recognized the dignity in her posture, the kind that refuses to break, despite everything. "Mrs. Patterson, please come in." Maya gestured to a comfortable chair. "Would you like some water?" "Yes, thank you." Her hands trembled slightly as she sat. "I haven't been sleeping well, not since they started coming at night." For the next hour, Mrs. Patterson detailed each incident. Officers pounding on her door at 2 a.m. Bravo 9 units parking outside her house, shining spotlights through her windows. Citations for imaginary code violations that disappeared from records when her lawyer requested copies. "Officer Mills was always there," she said, dabbing her eyes, "smirking while they searched my garden for suspicious materials. They tore up my roses. Those bushes were older than him." Maya's pen moved steadily across her notepad. "Did they ever mention why they were targeting your property specifically?" "Not directly, but Officer Hawthorne said I should consider my options, that the neighborhood was changing, becoming too expensive for people like me to maintain properties properly." Mrs. Patterson's voice hardened. "My house is paid for, has been for 20 years. The morning continued with similar stories. Jerome Taylor, 17, described being stopped 6 times in 1 week while walking to his after-school job. Each time, Bravo 9 officers searched him, claimed he matched a suspect description. "They kept asking if I lived in the area," Jerome said, his uniform crisp despite his obvious exhaustion. "Didn't matter that I showed them my ID every time. Mills would say, 'Maybe you should find a different route.' Through a different neighborhood, he meant." By noon, Maya's timeline had expanded dramatically. Names, dates, and incident details covered the whiteboard. Each victim's story reinforced the others: aggressive officers, targeted harassment, always members of Bravo 9. The afternoon interviews revealed more. Sarah Williams, a real estate agent, described trying to show homes to black families in upscale developments. "Patrol cars would appear within minutes," she explained. "Officers would demand to see my license, my credentials, everything. But only when I had black clients. The same officers, every time." Maya pulled up a map on the screen, marking each incident location. Red dots clustered around new development sites, areas where property values were rising sharply. The pattern was unmistakable. "They're not just racist," Danielle muttered, studying the map. "They're working for someone." These locations can't be coincidental. A retired teacher described being followed home from church by Bravo 9 units. A nurse practitioner showed photos of her car, mysteriously damaged after she filed a complaint. A teenager played a recording of Mills threatening to find something to arrest him for if he didn't stay in his own area. Each story added weight to Maya's growing certainty. This wasn't random harassment or individual bias. This was coordinated, systematic pressure to drive specific residents out of targeted neighborhoods. Maya stood, stretching her stiff muscles as their last interview ended. The whiteboard behind her told the story in stark details: dates, names, badge numbers, incident patterns. But one element appeared in every account, connected to every incident. She picked up a marker and wrote Bravo 9 in large letters at the top of the board. The name seemed to dominate the room, casting a shadow over all the evidence below it. With deliberate strokes, Maya drew a circle around those 2 words. The marker squeaked as she underlined it twice, the sound sharp in the quiet room. The double lines felt like drawing a target, or perhaps like drawing a line in the sand. Either way, there was no going back now. Maya's fingers flew across her keyboard, the glow of multiple monitors reflecting in her glasses. The federal building had grown quiet as afternoon stretched toward evening, most agents having left for the day. She preferred it this way: no distractions, just data and determination. Property records filled her primary screen. Foreclosures, quick sales, code violations that forced elderly residents to sell below market value. Her second monitor displayed a sprawling spreadsheet tracking every harassment incident reported during their interviews. The third showed a map of the city, red markers clustering around specific neighborhoods. "Show me the money," she muttered, cross-referencing addresses with sale dates. The pattern was there, just beneath the surface. Like a skilled surgeon, she cut through layers of bureaucratic camouflage, exposing the corruption beneath. Her phone buzzed again, the fifth unknown number in 2 hours. Maya glanced at it, logged the digits in a separate file, and returned to her investigation. The calls had started right after their morning interviews. She knew better than to answer. A property sale caught her eye. Mrs. Patterson's neighbor had sold their home 3 months ago, far below market value. The buyer was listed as Oak Ridge Development Partners, LLC. Maya dug deeper, pulling corporation records. "Got you," she whispered, opening a new window. The LLC connected to a dozen similar companies, all purchasing properties in areas where Bravo 9 had increased patrols. She traced ownership through shell companies and holding firms until reaching a familiar name: Winston Capital Group. Her phone buzzed again. She added another number to her log. Maya pulled up city council records, scanning through building permits and zoning changes. Winston Capital appeared repeatedly, always alongside unanimous council approval for their projects. The company's CEO attended every meeting, standing beside Police Chief Granger in the photos. "Of course," Maya said, pieces clicking into place. She opened personnel files, focusing on Bravo 9's formation. The unit was created 3 years ago, coinciding with Winston Capital's first major development project. Their jurisdiction perfectly matched the company's target areas. Her printer hummed as she generated maps, showing property acquisitions overlaid with reported harassment incidents. The correlation was undeniable. Black homeowners faced escalating pressure, suspicious traffic stops, constant wellness checks, citations for non-existent violations. Within months, they sold their homes to Winston Capital's shell companies. Another unknown number lit up her phone. Maya's jaw tightened as she documented it. She dove into financial records, following money through a maze of accounts. Chief Granger's name surfaced again. His wife sat on Winston Capital's board. His brother-in-law handled their real estate closings. Every connection reeked of carefully constructed deniability. Maya created a timeline, linking each piece. Bravo 9's creation, targeted harassment campaigns, property sales, development approvals. The unit wasn't just corrupt, it was designed for corruption. A private enforcement arm disguised as public servants. Her phone vibrated. 2 more unknown numbers in quick succession. She pulled up body cam footage from her pool incident, studying the officers' faces. Mills and Hawthorne, both original Bravo 9 members, both involved in dozens of harassment complaints. Their confident smirks made sense now. They thought they were untouchable, protected by a system built to serve private interests. The printer kept working as Maya generated document after document. Property maps marked with sale prices and dates. Spreadsheets tracking harassment patterns. Corporate records showing the tangled web of ownership. Photos of Chief Granger with Winston Capital executives at charity galas and groundbreaking ceremonies. Her phone lit up again. Maya added the latest number to her growing list, noting the pattern. Different area codes, but all from disposable phones. Someone was trying to send a message. She stood, stretching muscles stiff from hours of focused work. The investigation board dominated one wall of her office, covered in photos and documents connected by red strings. Maya approached it with her fresh printouts, studying the existing evidence. The map in her hands told the story clearly. Red dots marking harassment incidents, overlaid with property acquisitions and development projects. Every piece fit perfectly, revealing the machine grinding away beneath the surface. Identify target properties, pressure owners through selective enforcement. Buy low through shell companies, develop high for massive profits. Maya reached for pushpins, carefully securing the map at each corner. She stepped back, taking in the full picture. The evidence was there, ready to dismantle their entire operation. Her pool incident hadn't been random. She'd moved into one of their target areas, a black homeowner who didn't fit their plans. Her phone buzzed one more time. Maya glanced at the screen, logged the number, and turned back to her board. Let them call. She had bigger concerns now. The map hung centered on her investigation board, a damning illustration of greed and corruption. Every red marker represented a family harassed, a community damaged, a system corrupted. Maya studied it silently, her determination hardening into steel. The federal building's marble lobby echoed with their footsteps as Maya and Danielle made their way to the elevators. Maya carried a thick binder of evidence, organized meticulously from her late-night investigation. Her face showed no trace of fatigue, only determination. "You ready?" Danielle asked, pressing the button for the 8th floor. "More than ready," Maya replied, adjusting her blazer. These weren't random incidents. This was organized criminal activity using police power. The elevator doors opened to a hushed corridor lined with heavy wooden doors. They walked purposefully to the Assistant U.S. Attorney's office, where Malcolm Reed waited for them. His office was immaculate. Every paper perfectly aligned, every book precisely placed. Agent Hollister, Agent Frost. Reed greeted them formally, gesturing to the chairs across from his desk. "I understand this is urgent." Maya opened her binder and began laying out documents. "We've uncovered a systematic exploitation of police authority for private real estate gain. Bravo, 9 unit specifically targets black homeowners for harassment, creating pressure to sell their properties below market value." Reed leaned forward, examining the property maps. His expression remained neutral, but his eyes sharpened with interest. "These red markers show documented harassment incidents," Maya continued, spreading out more evidence. "The blue circles are properties purchased by shell companies tied to Winston Capital Group. Notice the pattern. And the timing correlates perfectly," Danielle added, pointing to the timeline. "Bravo 9's creation, increased patrols, sudden spikes in citations and stops, all matching Winston Capital's expansion plans." Reed studied the corporate documents carefully. "The police chief's connections to Winston?" "His wife sits on their board," Maya explained. "His brother-in-law handles property closings. The entire unit was created to serve as their private enforcement arm." She presented transcripts from their victim interviews, each highlighting the same tactics: constant surveillance, baseless citations, explicit threats. Reed's jaw tightened as he read. "And your own incident?" he asked, looking up at Maya. "Fits the pattern exactly. I purchased in one of their target areas. Within days, neighbors called in a false report, and Bravo 9 officers responded with excessive force." Maya's voice remained steady. "My security cameras captured everything." Reed stood, pacing behind his desk as he processed the information. The morning sun cast long shadows across the office floor. "This is organized criminal activity using official authority," he said finally. "Racketeering, civil rights violations, conspiracy." He turned to face them. "We need to move quickly before evidence disappears." He reached for his phone, dialing rapidly. "Judge Martinez? Malcolm Reed. I need emergency warrants for the Bravo 9 investigation. Yes, immediate execution required." Maya and Danielle exchanged glances as Reed detailed the evidence. After 20 years in law enforcement, they knew this moment, when the wheels of justice finally gained traction. Reed hung up and immediately made another call, this time to the FBI Tactical Division. I want teams ready within the hour. We're moving on multiple locations simultaneously. He turned back to Maya and Danielle. The warrants will be ready in 30 minutes. We'll hit their offices, seize records, secure evidence before they can destroy anything. His usually careful demeanor had shifted to controlled urgency. As they gathered their materials, Danielle touched Maya's arm. There's something else you should know. That 911 call from your neighbors? It's been flagged for misuse of emergency services. They're now in the system for bias-motivated false reporting. Maya nodded, satisfaction flickering across her face. Good. Actions have consequences. They left Reed's office as he continued coordinating with tactical teams. The hallway buzzed with increased activity as agents prepared for the upcoming operation. Walking out of the federal building into the bright morning sun, Maya felt the shift in momentum. For the first time since her pool attack, they were ahead of their opponents. Movement caught her eye. A black SUV parked across the street, its windows tinted dark. Maya reached for her phone, carefully photographing the license plate while appearing to check messages. The vehicle's engine started, and it pulled away slowly, turning at the next corner. Maya walked to her car, hyper-aware of her surroundings. She could feel the growing weight of threat around her, like storm clouds gathering. Her hand tightened on her keys as she approached her vehicle, every sense alert for danger. The parking lot was quiet, too quiet for a weekday morning. Maya's training kicked in as she scanned the area, noting potential cover positions and escape routes. She reached for her car door, keys ready. Early morning sun cast long shadows across the courthouse steps as Maya approached, her heels clicking purposefully on the worn stone. Reed and Danielle were already waiting, both dressed formally and carrying thick legal folders. The gravity of the moment hung in the air like static before a storm. "Morning," Maya said, adjusting her navy blazer. The weight of her own case file felt reassuring against her side. "Everything ready?" Judge Harrison cleared her morning calendar for this, Reed replied, checking his watch. "She understands the urgency." Danielle stepped closer, keeping her voice low despite the empty plaza. "The chat logs we pulled last night are devastating. These officers weren't even trying to hide their bias. The language they used?" She shook her head in disgust. "Add that to the property records and victim statements," Maya said, "and we have our network mapped out completely." They climbed the courthouse steps together, passing through security and making their way to Judge Harrison's chambers. The halls were quiet this early, their footsteps echoing off marble floors and wood-paneled walls. Inside the judge's chambers, morning light streamed through tall windows, illuminating dark wooden bookshelves and leather-bound law volumes. Judge Harrison, a stern-faced woman in her 60s, sat behind an imposing desk. "Counselor Reed," she nodded, then turned to Maya and Danielle. "Agents, I understand this is time-sensitive." "Yes, Your Honor," Reed began, laying out the first set of documents. "We're presenting evidence of systematic civil rights violations and organized criminal activity within the police department, specifically involving their Bravo 9 unit." Maya stepped forward, opening her laptop to display the pool incident footage. "This was 3 days ago, Your Honor. I was assaulted by Bravo 9 officers in my own backyard after a deliberately false 911 call." The judge watched the video intently, her expression hardening as she saw the officer's aggressive behavior. "And you have evidence linking this to a larger pattern?" "Yes, Your Honor." Danielle spread out maps marked with incident locations. "These represent documented cases of harassment and illegal stops, all targeting Black residents in specific neighborhoods." Maya continued, "When we overlay property acquisition records, you can see the pattern." She placed transparent sheets showing real estate purchases. Winston Capital Group moves in after residents are pressured out. The police chief's family has direct ties to Winston's board. Judge Harrison studied the documents carefully, occasionally asking pointed questions about specific incidents and connections. Her eyes narrowed as she reviewed the internal chat logs. "These messages," she said, tapping the transcripts, "show clear racial bias and coordinated targeting of specific homeowners." "Yes, Your Honor," Reed confirmed. "And they discuss using police authority to create pressure for property sales. The language is explicit." Maya presented additional evidence: financial records showing property transfers, victim testimonies describing identical harassment tactics, and documentation of selective enforcement patterns. Each piece strengthened their case, forming an undeniable picture of corruption. The judge reviewed everything methodically, making notes and asking for clarification on specific points. After what felt like hours, she looked up. "This is compelling evidence of serious criminal activity," she declared. "I'm granting full access to department servers, devices, and financial records." She began signing the warrants. "You'll have complete authorization to seize and search all relevant materials." Maya felt a wave of relief wash over her. After days of building tension since the pool attack, finally seeing justice in motion was overwhelming. She took a deep breath, steadying herself against the edge of the judge's desk. Danielle squeezed her arm supportively as Judge Harrison finished signing the last warrant. "I want regular updates on this investigation," the judge instructed, handing the documents to Reed. "This kind of abuse of authority cannot stand." They gathered their materials and left the chambers, the signed warrants secure in Reed's briefcase. In the courthouse corridor, Maya allowed herself a small smile. "We've got them," Danielle said quietly. "All their records, all their communications, everything." "They won't see it coming," Reed added, checking his phone. "Tactical teams are on standby. We'll move as soon as I file these." Maya nodded, feeling the weight of the past few days lifting slightly. For the first time since being slammed onto her pool deck, she felt truly confident about the outcome. The day passed in a blur of preparation and coordination. By late afternoon, Maya was finally heading home, watching the sun sink toward the horizon. She pulled into her driveway as dusk settled over the neighborhood, casting long shadows across her front lawn. Her shoulders relaxed as she gathered her things from the car, thinking about a quiet evening after the intense day. Hidden in the growing darkness, beyond her fence line, someone watched her every move. Night settled over Maya's backyard, the darkness broken only by soft landscape lighting along the pool's edge. The events of the day, the warrants, the judge's approval, the promise of justice, had left her exhausted but satisfied. She stood at her sliding glass door, keys jingling in her hand, as she prepared to lock up for the night. The cool evening air carried the scent of jasmine from her garden. Maya paused, taking a moment to breathe it in. After days of tension, even this simple pleasure felt meaningful. She stepped onto the patio, her bare feet silent against the smooth concrete. The lights went out. Not just her yard lights, everything. The pool illumination, the security floods, even the dim glow from her neighbor's windows vanished. The darkness was absolute, suffocating in its suddenness. Maya's heart jumped. Her FBI training kicked in immediately. This wasn't a random outage. She turned to retreat inside, but rustling sounds erupted from multiple directions. Her muscles tensed, ready to fight. They came at her like shadows. 5 figures, faces hidden behind black masks, moved with practiced coordination. Before she could shout, thick fingers clamped over her mouth, muffling any sound. Another attacker grabbed her arms, pinning them behind her back with brutal efficiency. Cold steel pressed against her ribs, a knife blade, its pressure precise and threatening. Maya struggled instinctively, but the grip on her arms only tightened. "Listen carefully," a voice growled near her ear. The words were deliberately distorted, spoken through something that masked their natural tone. "You're going to drop this investigation. All of it. Tonight. The knife pressed harder, not enough to break skin, but promising worse. Maya's breath came in short bursts against the hand covering her mouth. Her mind raced, cataloging details even through her fear. Heights, builds, the lingering scent of gun oil that marked them as law enforcement. Next time won't be a warning, another voice added. Those warrants disappear by morning, or you disappear. Permanently. The leader stepped closer, his mask inches from her face. We know where you sleep, where you work, where you shop. There's nowhere you can hide from us. He paused, letting the threat sink in. Remember that. Maya refused to lower her gaze, staring back with defiance despite her racing heart. The hand across her mouth tightened painfully. Such a shame about your beautiful pool, one of them taunted. Bet it doesn't feel so relaxing anymore, does it? They held her there for several more seconds, the knife blade a constant reminder of their intentions. Then the leader deliberately reached into his pocket and dropped something at her feet. In the dim moonlight, Maya could make out the distinct shape of a tactical glove. Standard police issue. The message was clear. They wanted her to know exactly who they were. As quickly as they appeared, they released her and melted away into the darkness. Maya stumbled forward, catching herself against a patio chair. Her arms ached where they'd been twisted, and she could still feel the phantom pressure of the knife against her side. The power flickered back on suddenly, pool lights humming to life as if nothing had happened. Maya's security cameras would have been useless during the blackout, another sign of their professional planning. She forced herself to take deep breaths, fighting against the trembling in her hands. The tactical glove lay where they'd dropped it, a deliberate taunt and threat combined. Maya didn't touch it, knowing it would be clean of evidence. They weren't sloppy. They were sending a message. Her phone felt heavy in her pocket as she pulled it out, fingers shaking slightly as she found Danielle's number. The line connected after 2 rings. Maya? What's wrong? Danielle's voice was instantly alert, picking up on something in Maya's silence. Maya glanced around her yard, now peaceful and bright again, but forever changed. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper, thick with controlled fear and anger. They came to my house. Red and blue lights painted Maya's yard in urgent colors as federal marshals swarmed her property. Their tactical lights cut through the lingering darkness, illuminating every corner where shadows had hidden her attackers minutes before. The marshals moved with practiced efficiency, their weapons ready but controlled. Supervisory Deputy Marshal Sarah Turner approached Maya, who stood wrapped in a shock blanket despite the warm night. Agent Hollister, we need to document everything while it's fresh. Can you walk us through it? Maya nodded, her professional demeanor returning despite the tremors still running through her body. She led them to the tactical glove, which lay undisturbed on the concrete. They dropped this deliberately, she explained, her voice steady now. They wanted me to know they were police. An evidence technician photographed the glove from multiple angles before carefully sealing it in a clear bag. Maya pointed to different spots around her patio. 5 men. They came from these positions when the power went out. 1 here, 2 there, another by the pool equipment, the leader straight ahead. The marshals marked each location with numbered tags. Maya continued, walking them through the assault. The one who held my arms was about 6'2", muscular build. The one with the knife was shorter, maybe 5'10". They all moved like they had tactical training. Inside her home office, Maya logged into her security system. Though the cameras had been useless during the blackout, her motion sensors and smart lighting system had automatically uploaded data to the cloud. There, she said, pointing to shadowy figures caught in the moments before the power cut. That height and stance pattern matches Officer Mills. And that build there, that's Officer Reynolds. Both Bravo 9. Deputy Turner leaned closer to the screen. Good catch. The way they're moving, This was definitely a coordinated hit. We'll pull cell tower data for this time window, see who was in the area. The front door opened and Danielle Frost burst in, her face tight with barely contained rage. She crossed the room in quick strides and pulled Maya into a fierce hug. "I should have seen this coming," she muttered. "They're escalating faster than we predicted." Pulling back, Danielle gripped Maya's shoulders. "You need to take protective leave. Let us handle this from here." Maya shook her head firmly. "No, that's exactly what they want. To scare me off, make me hide." She moved to her laptop and opened her email. "I'm going straight to the top." "Maya!" Danielle started to protest. "They came to my home, Danielle." Maya's voice carried steel beneath its calm surface. "They put their hands on me again. This ends now." Her fingers moved across the keyboard with purpose as she composed an email to FBI Director Harrison. She detailed the assault, attached the preliminary evidence, and formally requested emergency authorization for a full federal takedown of the department. The timestamp read 11:47 p.m. when she hit send. "They'll have to respond within the hour," Maya said, standing up. This is now a direct attack on a federal agent during an active investigation. Deputy Turner approached with a tablet. "We've got teams setting up a perimeter. No one gets within 2 blocks without us knowing. Do you want to relocate to a safe house?" "No." Maya walked to her kitchen, marshals parting to let her through. "I need to work, and I'm not letting them drive me from my home." She spread papers across her kitchen island, creating a makeshift command center while marshals continued securing the property. Floor plans of the police department appeared alongside shift schedules and personnel files. Maya marked entry points and tactical positions with precise movements. "They'll expect us to wait, to build a longer case," she said, as Danielle joined her at the island. "But we're going in hard and fast. Complete surprise." The kitchen lights cast harsh shadows across the documents as Maya detailed breach points and containment zones. Her hand never wavered as she drew the raid patterns, her earlier fear transformed into focused determination. "Teams here, here, and here," she indicated, marking positions. "We'll need at least 50 agents, full tactical gear. I want every exit covered before they know we're coming." Danielle studied the plans, adding her own notes. "We'll need surveillance on their homes, too. Some will run as soon as they hear chatter." Outside, more federal vehicles arrived silently, their lights off to avoid drawing attention. Teams of marshals patrolled the perimeter, their presence both protection and promise. The night that had held such threat just an hour ago now hummed with purposeful energy. Maya felt the weight of every marked position, every planned movement on her diagrams. The raid would be perfect. It had to be. She'd give Bravo 9 the same courtesy they'd shown her. No warning, no escape, no mercy. Maya stood in the federal tactical briefing room, her posture rigid as she faced 40 heavily armed agents. The room's fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across the tactical gear and serious faces. Behind her, 4 large screens displayed satellite images and building layouts. "We hit all locations simultaneously at 0600 hours, she announced, her voice carrying to every corner. "No sirens, no warnings. Complete tactical surprise is essential." She moved to the first screen, showing the police precinct. "Strike Team Alpha takes the main building. Be aware, Bravo 9 installed unauthorized security upgrades. The side entrance has a hidden card reader. Tech team will disable it remotely at UR 555. Deputy Turner raised her hand. "Intel suggests some officers sleep in the break room between shifts. How do we handle potential armed response?" "Flashbangs in any room with movement," Maya replied. "They've proven they'll use violence. We respond accordingly." She pointed to specific offices. "Priority targets are these 3 rooms: records, evidence lockup, and the chief's private office. Each has a reinforced safe. Breach team brings plasma cutters. The second screen showed a warehouse on the outskirts of town. Strike Team Bravo hits this location. Our surveillance confirms Bravo 9 uses it to store seized property they never logged into evidence. The security cameras are fake. They rely on armed guards instead. She clicked to detailed interior photos. 2 guards per shift, usually ex-military. They're paid through the same shell company that handles the real estate transfers. Take them down fast and secure any paperwork or devices you find. The third screen displayed the administrative building housing the police chief's main office. Strike Team Charlie. Chief Granger keeps his most sensitive files here, not at the precinct. The entire 4th floor is restricted access. His private elevator requires both a key card and fingerprint scan. What about his secretary? Someone asked. She arrives at 0700. We'll be inside well before then. Maya advanced to close up images of file cabinets and safes. Focus on these locations. Our warrant covers every container, locked or not. Chief Granger thinks he's untouchable. That makes him sloppy. The evidence will be there. The final screen showed a gleaming office tower. Strike Team Delta takes the developer's headquarters. Morgan Real Estate Group occupies floors 15 through 18. Their servers contain records of every property acquired through Bravo 9's harassment campaigns. Maya's jaw tightened. These people destroyed families, forced them from their homes, then profited from their pain. We shut it all down today. The room hummed with focused energy as team leaders distributed final assignments. Maya checked her tactical vest and weapon, muscle memory from years of raids taking over. She'd joined Strike Team Alpha at the precinct. She wanted to be there when it all came down. At 05:45, 4 armored convoys rolled out from different staging areas. Maya rode in the lead vehicle, studying live surveillance feeds on her tablet. The streets were empty in the pre-dawn darkness. 5 minutes to position, the driver announced. Maya switched her radio to the command channel. All teams, radio check. Strike Team Bravo, in position. Strike Team Charlie, ready. Strike Team Delta, green to go. At exactly 0600, Maya's voice cut through the morning silence. All teams, execute. The precinct's front doors shattered under battering rams. Maya moved in with the first wave, her weapon up. FBI! Hands where we can see them! Officers scrambled from desks, some reaching for weapons before freezing at the sight of dozens of tactical agents flooding the building. 2 tried to run for the back door, but found it already covered by agents. Secure those computers before they can delete anything, Maya ordered, moving deeper into the building. In the detective bullpen, an officer lunged for his keyboard. Maya's team tackled him before he could touch it. Another tried to stuff papers into a shredder but was dragged away, documents scattering across the floor. The radio crackled with updates from other teams. Warehouse secured, 2 guards in custody. Admin building breached, 4th floor clear. Developer's office locked down. IT team accessing servers. Maya reached the records room as agents used power tools to cut through the reinforced door. Inside, they found boxes of unofficial payment logs and thumb drives labeled with dates matching reported harassment incidents. A commotion erupted from the chief's office. Maya ran toward the sound, finding Chief Granger trying to climb out his window. 2 agents grabbed him, hauling him back inside. "You can't do this," he shouted as they cuffed him. "Do you know who I am?" "A corrupt officer who's about to face federal charges," Maya replied calmly. They led him through the precinct he'd ruled for so long. Other officers watched in shocked silence as their chief shuffled past in handcuffs. Outside, morning light spilled across the scene as news vans began arriving. "This is illegal!" Chief Granger yelled into the cold air. "I'll have all your badges." Maya watched as they loaded him into a transport vehicle, his threats fading into the wind. Around her, agents continued carrying out boxes of evidence, while detained officers sat in groups on the curb. The radio buzzed again. All teams report. Buildings secured. Evidence collection in progress. 38 suspects in custody. Maya stood in the warehouse parking lot, watching federal agents load evidence box after evidence box into waiting transport vans. The early morning sun cast long shadows across the cracked pavement as teams worked with precise efficiency. This wasn't just evidence. It was the physical proof of years of corruption and targeted harassment. "Agent Hollister!" called out a young evidence tech, waving from the warehouse entrance. "You need to see this." Inside, the warehouse air hung thick with dust, disturbed by the raid. Industrial shelving stretched to the ceiling, packed with items that should have been logged into official evidence but never were. Maya followed the tech to a back office where agents had already set up temporary processing stations. "Look at these," the tech said, spreading surveillance photos across a folding table. They were tracking specific families. Maya's jaw tightened as she examined the images. Dozens of photos showed Black residents going about their daily lives, walking to their cars, getting mail, playing with their kids in their yards. Each photo had dates and notes written on the back, documenting patterns and routines. "And there's this," another agent called from across the room. He stood beside an opened gun safe, pulling out unmarked weapons. "None of these are department-issued. No serial numbers either." Maya moved to inspect the weapons. "Log everything." These matched descriptions from victim statements about armed intimidation during night patrols. In another corner, agents unpacked boxes of discarded body cameras. Maya picked one up, noting the serial number. These were reported as malfunctioning or lost. They kept them here instead of turning them in for review. "That's not all," Danielle said, entering with a thick folder. "We found target lists, names, addresses, property values, all cross-referenced with complaints filed against Bravo 9 officers." Maya flipped through the pages. They weren't just responding to calls. They were actively selecting victims based on location and property values. A forensics tech approached with preliminary results from the tactical glove left at Maya's house during the attack. "We got 2 clear prints, ma'am. They match Officer Mills and Officer Santiago from Bravo 9. "Process everything," Maya ordered. "I want chain of custody perfect on each item. Nothing gets missed." Her phone buzzed. A text from the U.S. Attorney's office. Officers were starting to talk, hoping for deals. The pressure of federal charges was already cracking their unity. Maya allowed herself a small smile. The blue wall was crumbling. Outside, more evidence vans arrived as teams continued discovering caches of documents and devices. Maya watched an agent carefully pack away laptops containing years of unauthorized surveillance footage. "Agent Hollister," called a voice over the radio. "Morgan just tried to run. Air unit has eyes on him." Maya rushed to her vehicle, switching to the tactical channel as she drove. The real estate developer had attempted to flee in a private helicopter from his estate outside the city. But federal agents had anticipated this, coordinating with air traffic control and state police. "Target aircraft approaching restricted airspace," reported the helicopter pilot tracking Morgan. "He's being warned to land or face intercept." Minutes later, Maya arrived at a small private airfield where state police had forced Morgan's helicopter down. The developer emerged with his hands raised, his expensive suit coated in dust from the rotors. "Thomas Morgan," Maya announced, approaching as agents secured him. "You're under arrest for conspiracy, racketeering, and civil rights violations." "This is harassment," Morgan spat. "I'll have my lawyers." "Your lawyers are also under investigation," Maya cut him off. "We found the offshore accounts this morning. The whole network is exposed." Back at the warehouse, the final evidence boxes were being loaded as Maya returned. Officer Mills sat in the back of a transport van, his face pale as he watched agents carry away proof of his crimes. When he saw Maya, he quickly looked down. "We found your fingerprints on the glove," she told him through the van's cage, "along with documentation of every false arrest, every harassment campaign, every illegal search. It's over." More transport vans arrived to collect detained officers. Maya recognized faces from her own assault, men who had mocked her while pinning her to the concrete. Now they avoided her gaze as agents led them into vehicles. The last Bravo 9 officer to be loaded was Santiago, Mills's partner in the masked attack. He struggled briefly with the marshals, but went quiet when Maya approached. "You had a choice," she told him. "You chose to be part of this. Now you face the consequences." Santiago said nothing as they closed the van doors. Maya watched the vehicle pull away, carrying the final member of the corrupt unit that had terrorized her community. Around her, evidence teams continued their methodical work, documenting every piece of proof that would ensure justice was served. The morning sun now hung high overhead, illuminating the warehouse that had hidden so many secrets. Maya took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the past few days begin to lift. There would be months of prosecution ahead, but the hardest part was done. The truth was finally exposed. A crowd of reporters, community members, and curious onlookers pressed against the metal barriers outside the federal courthouse steps. The late morning sun reflected off the building's marble columns as dozens of cameras and microphones pointed toward the podium. Maya stood just inside the courthouse doors, reviewing her notes one final time. "Ready?" Danielle asked, straightening Maya's jacket collar. Maya nodded, squaring her shoulders. "More than ready." They pushed through the heavy doors into the bright sunlight. Camera shutters clicked rapidly as Maya approached the podium, her heels striking the stone steps with purpose. The murmur of the crowd quieted as she adjusted the microphone. "Good morning," Maya began, her voice carrying across the plaza. "I'm FBI Special Agent Maya Hollister. Today we announce federal charges following a multi-agency investigation into systemic corruption within the police department's specialized unit, known as Bravo 9. She paused, making eye contact with victims' family members in the front row. Some nodded encouragingly, others wiped away tears. The charges include conspiracy to violate civil rights, racketeering under RICO statutes, evidence tampering, assault, and multiple counts of official misconduct. Maya's voice remained steady and clear. 15 current and former officers have been indicted, along with 3 civilian conspirators, including real estate developer Thomas Morgan. Reporters' hands shot up, but Maya continued. The investigation revealed a coordinated campaign of harassment targeting black residents in developing neighborhoods. Officers conducted illegal surveillance, fabricated violations, and used intimidation to pressure homeowners to sell their properties below market value. She gestured to the stacks of evidence photos being displayed on easels beside the podium. These surveillance photos, taken illegally by Bravo 9 officers, show the systematic targeting of families based on race. The unit maintained detailed logs of their movements, routines, and vulnerabilities. More hands raised as reporters called out questions. Maya pointed to a woman in the front row. "What about the recent assault on a federal agent that triggered this investigation? That incident, which involved my own false arrest and assault at my home, provided key evidence of Bravo 9's tactical methods," Maya answered. "The subsequent attempt to intimidate me with a masked home invasion accelerated the federal response." Another reporter stood. "Can you address the role of civilian complainants in these incidents?" Maya's expression hardened slightly. The investigation identified multiple instances of coordinated false 911 calls targeting black residents. The most recent perpetrators have been fined for misuse of emergency services and placed in mandatory bias education programs. They've been warned that further incidents will result in criminal charges. Across town, through their living room window, The neighbors who had called 911 on Maya watched the press conference on their television. Their faces burned with shame as cameras panned across the crowd, showing their other victims, families they had harassed with false complaints for months. Back at the courthouse, Maya continued. This case represents a fundamental breach of public trust. These officers exploited their authority to profit from the displacement and intimidation of citizens they swore to protect. The courthouse doors opened behind her as U.S. Marshals began leading out the handcuffed officers. Camera crews rushed to capture their walk of shame. Officer Mills kept his head down, but Maya noticed his hands trembling in the cuffs. Officer Santiago tried to look defiant, but faltered when he met the steady gaze of his victims in the crowd. The investigation remains active, Maya added. We encourage anyone with information about similar incidents to contact the FBI field office. No one should face harassment or intimidation in their own community. A young reporter raised his hand. What message do you have for other departments engaging in similar practices? Maya's voice carried across the now silent plaza. The message is simple. Abuse of power will not be tolerated. Whether it wears a badge or hides behind a phone making false 911 calls, racism has no place in law enforcement or our communities. We will investigate, we will prosecute, and we will ensure accountability. She gripped the sides of the podium. To every person who came forward to share their story, thank you. Your courage made this possible. To those who thought they could operate with impunity, this is the consequence. The crowd erupted in applause as victims and their families stood, some embracing each other. Maya gathered her notes, nodding acknowledgement to the cheering supporters. The sound followed her as she stepped away from the podium, her head held high. Behind her, Morgan and the police chief were led out in chains, forced to face the cameras and their victims. The neighbors who had triggered Maya's assault sat in their living room, the TV remote limp in their hands, as their role in the conspiracy was broadcast across every local channel. Their prestigious neighborhood now knew them as the bigots who made false 911 calls. The applause continued to echo across the courthouse steps as Maya moved toward the doors, each step carrying her past the very spot where, days earlier, she had arrived seeking warrants. Now she walked away, having delivered justice. Maya stood at her back door early the next morning, coffee mug warm in her hands, watching the sunrise paint her pool in shades of gold. The water rippled gently in the breeze, so different from that violent Saturday when hands had grabbed her, when boots had scraped across this same concrete. She stepped out onto the patio, bare feet touching the spots where she'd been pinned down. The memory still stung, but it no longer had power over her. She'd transformed that violation into victory, that pain into justice. The sound of a car door closing made her turn. Danielle walked through the gate, carrying a thick manila envelope and wearing a proud smile. "Thought I'd find you out here," Danielle said, crossing to the patio table. "Embracing your kingdom?" Maya laughed softly. "Just reclaiming my space. Coffee?" "Already caffeinated, but thanks." Danielle sat down, placing the envelope between them. "The director sent this over personally. Your official commendation and promotion package." Maya ran her fingers along the envelope's edge. "They really fast-tracked it." "Of course they did. You just took down an entire corrupt police unit and exposed a criminal enterprise. The statewide oversight initiative needs someone like you at the helm." Danielle leaned forward. "Someone who won't back down, who will follow the evidence wherever it leads. Even when masked men show up with knives?" Maya raised an eyebrow. "Especially then." Danielle's expression grew serious. "You scared me that night, you know. But you were right not to run. You showed them what real strength looks like." Movement across the street caught Maya's attention. Her neighbors were in their front yard, the husband balancing precariously on a ladder while his wife supervised below. They were removing their neighborhood watch sign, the same one they'd pointed to while making false reports about black families viewing homes. "Look at that," Danielle muttered. "Amazing what a federal investigation and public humiliation will do for someone's priorities." The wife glanced toward Maya's yard, then quickly looked away when she realized she'd been spotted. The husband nearly dropped the sign in his haste to get it down. "They'll think twice before calling 911 on someone for existing while black again," Maya said, taking a slow sip of her coffee. "The bias education program should be enlightening for them." Danielle snorted. "I heard the instructor's excellent. Very thorough about confronting implicit racism and weaponized privilege." Maya set her mug down and stood up, stretching in the morning sun. She'd worn her swimsuit again, the same one from that first morning. But this time, no one was filming her over the fence. No one was whispering or pointing or reaching for their phone to make a call. "Want to stay for a swim?" Maya asked. "Can't. Meeting with AUSA Reed in an hour to process the last batch of plea deals." Danielle stood, straightening her jacket. "But you enjoy this. You've more than earned it." They hugged briefly, and Danielle headed for the gate. She paused halfway there, turning back. "Hey, Maya." "I'm proud of you. What you did here, standing your ground, fighting back, exposing everything. It's going to help so many people." Maya smiled. "We did it together." After Danielle left, Maya walked to her lounge chair, the same one she'd been dragged from that morning. She settled onto it, feeling the sun warm her skin. Across the street, her neighbors had finally wrestled their sign down. They hurried inside without looking back, their door closing with a definitive click. The pool water sparkled invitingly. Maya stood and walked to the edge, dipping her toe in. Perfect temperature. She stepped down the stairs into the shallow end, then pushed off, gliding through the water with long, smooth strokes. Everything felt different now. The fear was gone, replaced by something stronger. The quiet certainty that comes from facing injustice and defeating it. She'd taken their attempt to humiliate her and turned it into a weapon that brought down their whole corrupt system. Maya rolled onto her back, floating peacefully on the surface. The water held her up, cool and supportive against her skin. Clouds drifted overhead in the bright blue sky, the same sky she'd stared at while pinned to the concrete, but now she watched it by choice, in victory. She closed her eyes, feeling the sun on her face, the sound of distant traffic mixed with bird song and the gentle lapping of water against the pool's edges. This was her space, her home, her victory. No more surveillance photos, no more false 911 calls, no more corrupt officers using their badges to terrorize families. She'd exposed it all, delivering justice not just for herself, but for every victim who'd trusted her with their stories. Maya floated serenely across the pool's surface, finally letting herself exhale fully for the first time since that terrible morning. The water cradled her like a victory lap, each gentle ripple washing away the last traces of trauma and replacing them with triumph. If you enjoyed the story, leave a like to support my channel, and subscribe so that you do not miss out on the next one. On the screen, I have picked 2 special stories just for you. Have a wonderful day.